So, what does it really take to build a life of freedom? One that you're actually excited to live, especially when you feel like you're starting from absolute zero. Well, today we're going to look at a blueprint for turning that huge, kind of overwhelming dream into your very first crucial step. Let's dive in. This quote from Anne Sweeney just hits different, doesn't it? That deep down desire to build a life you're genuinely proud of. And the source material we're exploring today, it starts in that exact same place, with that powerful, sometimes restless feeling that makes us look for a whole new path. And there it is. That's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to want a different life, right? But it's a whole other ballgame to figure out where to even put your foot down first. That feeling of being totally lost in a fog of possibilities, it's super common. And honestly, it's the very first wall we have to get over. Okay, so this first part, it gets right to the heart of the problem. Pure, unadulterated overwhelm. When you first start looking around, the sheer number of options out there can feel less like a world of opportunity and more like a crushing weight on your shoulders. Here's the paradox, right? The issue isn't a lack of opportunities, it's that there are just way too many. You're getting flooded with gurus, strategies, different platforms, and every single one is promising you the world. And what happens? You get analysis paralysis. You're so stuck trying to pick the perfect path that you end up taking, well, no path at all. So if the problem is this huge fog of too many choices, the solution has to be about finding some clarity. But how? How do you cut through all that noise and just find one simple, actionable direction? Well, the core idea our source suggests is, believe it or not, surprisingly simple. And here it is. This is the big idea, the one that can break you out of that overwhelm. It's this: success leaves clues. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with a path from scratch, you find your signposts by looking at what actually worked for people who've already made it. Now, let's be super clear about something. This isn't about just blindly copying someone else's life. No way. It's about studying their map. You're looking at their mindset, their core principles, their big picture strategies. You're not looking for a script to read. You're looking for a framework that you can take and make your own. Okay, this brings us to a really critical fork in the road. Because as you start looking for those clues and studying those maps, you're going to find two very, very different kinds of paths being offered. There's the super tempting magic shortcut, and then there's what our source calls the honest path. Every single person starting out faces this choice. Over on one side, you've got the magic shortcut screaming at you, promising instant results with some secret trick, which, let's be real, almost always ends in frustration. Then on the other side, you've got the honest path. It's not flashy, it doesn't promise speed, it promises sustainable growth, built on consistent effort and real, genuine learning. The takeaway from our source? The mentors worth listening to were the ones who are brutally honest about the work involved. So, what does this honest path actually look like day to day? It really boils down to three simple things. First, you've got to embrace the effort. You have to accept that real work is part of the deal. Second, commit to learning. Like, really become a student of your craft. And third, and this one is the superpower, build consistency. We're talking about practical daily habits. Maybe it's 1 hour of focused study, or writing 500 words, or making one sales call. They seem tiny on their own, but they compound over time into absolutely massive results. All right, so let's just take a breath and see how far we've come. We've moved from that thick fog of overwhelm to the clarity of the honest path. We've thrown out the myth of the magic shortcut and replaced it with a real, solid strategy. Now, all that's left is to turn that knowledge into action. This is where your journey really, truly begins. And this is maybe the most powerful takeaway of all. The author of our source material makes it clear that they're still learning. And that's the whole point. You don't have to be an expert to start. You just have to start. The goal isn't perfection from day one. The goal is just progress. That very first step, that's what matters most. So really, this whole thing boils down to one simple question for you. What is your first step? Forget the grand 5-year plan for just a second. What is one small, simple, manageable action you can take today to start building the life you actually want? That's it. That's where it all begins. Thanks for diving in on this one.